The massive holographic display flickered to life in the center of the Galactic Council chamber, casting an eerie blue glow across the faces of 12 alien rulers. Each being represented a different species, from the crystalline Zephyrians with their razor-sharp features to the gaseous nebuloids floating in their containment suits. But today, every single one of them stared at the same impossible image: Earth. A small blue-green planet in the outer spiral arm of the galaxy. A world they had dismissed as primitive just months ago. "This cannot be accurate," hissed Commander Vextor, his serpentine tongue flicking nervously between his fangs. The reptilian council member's usually confident demeanor had cracked, revealing something rarely seen among his kind: fear. High Chancellor Zarath, the eldest of the crystalline Zephyrians, stepped forward. Her translucent body caught the light from the hologram, creating rainbow patterns across the chamber walls. "The data has been verified 17 times, Commander. Our deep space reconnaissance drones do not lie." The image zoomed in, showing what appeared to be empty space near Earth's moon. Then, slowly, a shimmer began to appear. Like heat waves rising from hot asphalt, the distortion grew stronger until it revealed the impossible. A ship, but not just any ship. The vessel stretched nearly 50 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull a dark, matte black that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Weapon ports lined its sides like the eyes of some ancient sea monster, and from its center rose a massive superstructure that dwarfed even the Council's most powerful dreadnoughts. "By the Seven Suns," whispered Kelda, the Aquarian representative. Her gills fluttered with anxiety, requiring her to tap her breathing apparatus twice. "How long has it been there?" "Unknown," replied Zarath. "Our analysts believe it has been cloaked for at least 50 years, possibly longer. The humans call it the Prometheus." A ripple of disbelief passed through the chamber. The gaseous nebuloid. Delegate, speaking through his translator, created harmonics that expressed pure shock. 50 years? But their technology was supposed to be centuries behind ours. General Cross, a massive bear-like creature from the warrior planet Ursinia, slammed his clawed fist onto his control console. "You're telling me that while we've been treating them like children playing with sticks and stones, they've had a supercarrier hiding in their backyard?" "It appears so," Zarath confirmed. She manipulated the hologram with graceful gestures, zooming in on different sections of the massive ship. "But this is only the beginning of what we've discovered." The image shifted to show the ship's hangar. Bays. Thousands of fighter craft lined the internal decks, each one bearing design elements that none of the council members recognized. The technology looked human, but it was far more advanced than anything Earth had ever displayed. "These fighters..." Vextor studied the display carefully. "They use energy signatures we've never encountered. The power readings are substantial." "How substantial?" asked Kelda, her aquatic eyes narrowing. Zarath paused before answering. "Each fighter appears to generate more raw energy than our current battlecruisers." The silence that followed was deafening. These beings had ruled the galaxy for millennia, their technology unquestioned, their superiority assumed. The idea that a species they had barely acknowledged could possess such power was almost incomprehensible. Admiral Thane, the cybernetic representative from the machine worlds, spoke for the first time. His voice carried the cold precision of artificial intelligence merged with organic thought. "Have they detected our reconnaissance?" "We believe so," Zarath admitted. 12 hours ago, all our monitoring drones went dark simultaneously. No distress signals, no signs of weapon discharge. They simply stopped transmitting. General Cross growled low in his throat. "That's impossible. Our drones use quantum encryption and stealth technology that even we can barely detect." "Yet, they eliminated them all in the same instant," Zarath continued. "Across a monitoring network spanning 3 light years. The implications hung heavy in the recycled air of the chamber. If Earth could neutralize their most advanced surveillance technology so easily, what else were they capable of?" Kelda's breathing apparatus hissed as she processed this information. "We need to know more. Send a diplomatic envoy. Perhaps there's been some misunderstanding." "No," Admiral Thane's mechanical voice cut through her suggestion. We send ships. If they have been hiding this level of technology, they have been preparing for something. The question is, are they preparing to defend or to attack? Commander Vextor's scales rippled with agitation. You suggest we treat them as a threat? They are one small planet against our entire galactic empire. One small planet, Zareth corrected, with at least one supercarrier that makes our flagship look like a mining vessel. As if summoned by her words, a new alarm began to sound throughout the chamber. The emergency notification system, something that hadn't been activated in over 2 centuries, filled the air with its urgent tone. A junior technician, a young Zephyrian with barely formed crystal growths, rushed into the chamber. Protocol demanded that no one interrupt the council during session, but the terror on the young being's face suggested this was no ordinary situation. High Chancellor, the technician's voice shook. We're receiving a transmission from the Sol system. From Earth? General Cross was already moving toward his command station. No, sir, from something else, something big. The main display flickered and changed, showing not the familiar blue-green world they had been studying, but deep space near the outer edge of the Sol system. And there, emerging from behind the shadow of Pluto, came another ship. This one was even larger than the Prometheus. The vessel was white and gold, its hull gleaming like polished marble. Elegant curves replaced the angular design of the hidden supercarrier, but the weapon arrays were unmistakable. Hundreds of them, each one larger than anything in the Council's arsenal. By the ancient codes, whispered Kelda, how many ships do they have? Before anyone could answer, the transmission began. The image of a human appeared on the screen, a woman with graying hair and intense blue eyes, wearing what appeared to be a military uniform unlike anything they had seen before. Greetings, Galactic Council, the woman said, her voice carrying an authority that made several of the alien rulers take an involuntary step backward. My name is Admiral Sarah Chen, representing the Sol Defense Fleet. I believe we need to talk. Chapter 2. The Human Fleet. The council chamber fell silent except for the soft hum of life support systems. Admiral Chen's image remained steady on the main display, her patient gaze seeming to look directly at each council member in turn. High Chancellor Zarath was the first to recover from the shock. Admiral Chen, this is unexpected. We were not aware Earth possessed such advanced vessels. A slight smile played at the corners of the Admiral's mouth. There are many things about Earth you're not aware of, Chancellor. We've been watching your expansion into our local star group for some time now. General Cross stepped forward, his massive frame casting shadows across the display. Your local star group? You speak as if you have some claim to this region of space. We do, Admiral Chen replied simply, though we haven't felt the need to announce it until now. Commander Vextor's forked tongue flicked out nervously. Admiral, with respect, your species has barely achieved interplanetary travel. Your most advanced ships are primitive fusion-powered vessels that's what we wanted you to think. Chen interrupted, her tone remaining polite but firm. The ships you've observed around Earth are what we call our public fleet. They're designed to make visiting species feel comfortable, to suggest we're still working our way up the technological ladder. Admiral Thane's mechanical systems whirred as he processed this information. You deliberately concealed your true capabilities. Why? For the same reason a smaller animal might avoid the attention of a larger predator, Chen replied. Until recently, we weren't sure what your intentions were toward developing species. The holographic display split, showing Admiral Chen on one side and a tactical view of the Sol system on the other. What they saw made several council members gasp, audibly. Ships were emerging from concealment throughout the solar system. Not just the 2 massive vessels they had already discovered, but dozens of smaller craft, each one clearly more advanced than anything in the Council's fleet. Near Mars, a group of sleek destroyers uncloaked, their hulls shimmering with some kind of adaptive camouflage technology. Around Jupiter, massive mining platforms revealed themselves, but these weren't mining equipment. They were shipyards and they were busy. How long? Kelda asked, her gills fluttering rapidly. How long have you been building this fleet? Construction began about 80 years ago, Chen replied matter-of-factly, when we first detected your expansion toward our sector. We decided it would be prudent to prepare for various contingencies. Zarath manipulated her controls, trying to get detailed scans of the vessels. Our sensors cannot penetrate your hull materials. What are they made of? A classified metamaterial that combines elements we discovered in the asteroid belt with certain rare earth compounds. We call it Terran steel. It's approximately 40 times stronger than your standard hull plating and has some interesting properties regarding energy absorption. The casual way she delivered this information sent chills through the chamber. The humans weren't just more advanced than anyone had realized. They were decades ahead in material science alone. General Cross crossed his arms, his claws clicking against his armor. Impressive. But you're still vastly outnumbered. The Council commands over 10,000 ships across 100 systems. Quality over quantity, General, Chen replied. But you're right about numbers. That's why we didn't build our fleet alone. The tactical display zoomed out, showing not just the Sol system but the surrounding star systems within a 20 light-year radius. Icons began appearing throughout the region, each one representing a ship or space station. Ladies, gentlemen, and esteemed beings, Admiral Chen continued, allow me to introduce you to the Sol Defense Alliance. We've been working with several species in this region for the past 60 years. Commander Vextor's eyes widened as he recognized some of the ship designs. Those are Centauri vessels and vegan frigates, but those species are barely out of their industrial age. We're barely out of their industrial age, Chen corrected. Amazing what species can accomplish when they work together, instead of conquering each other. A new voice joined the conversation as another human appeared on the screen beside Admiral Chen. This one was younger, with the bearing of a scientist rather than a military officer. Council members, I'm Dr. Marcus Webb, head of the Alliance Technology Exchange. Perhaps I can clarify a few things about our development timeline. Dr. Webb gestured, and the display showed a complex diagram of technological progression. When we first detected your expansion, we realized that isolation wasn't a viable long-term strategy, so we reached out to other species in our local group, the Centaurians, the Vegans, the Procyon, even the silicon-based entities in the Wolf system. Kelda leaned forward, her aquatic features showing deep concentration. You shared technology with them? We exchanged technology, Webb corrected. The Centaurians had developed fascinating gravitational manipulation techniques. The Vegans had made breakthroughs in quantum computing that we could only dream of. The Procyon had mastered energy-to-matter conversion. Each species brought something unique to the table. Zarath's crystalline form flickered with what might have been admiration. A voluntary technological alliance. Such things are uncommon, in our experience. Maybe that's the problem, Admiral Chen interjected. From what we've observed, the Galactic Council's approach to new species is typically conquest or subjugation. Join the Council and accept our authority, or be absorbed into our sphere of influence. The accusation hung in the air like a challenge. Several council members began to speak at once, but Zarath raised her hand for silence. You speak of our methods as if they are inherently wrong, Admiral. We have brought peace and order to thousands of worlds. Peace through dominance isn't really peace, Chen replied. It's just suppressed conflict waiting for the right moment to explode. General Cross slammed his console again. Are you threatening us, human? I'm stating a fact. Chen's tone remained calm, but there was steel beneath her words. We've studied your expansion patterns, General. Every species that has joined the Council has done so either because they were threatened into submission or because they saw no other choice for survival. Admiral Thane's mechanical systems hummed as he processed vast amounts of data. You suggest an alternative to our current galactic structure? Dr. Webb stepped forward again. We're not suggesting anything, we're demonstrating it. The Sol Defense Alliance operates on principles of mutual cooperation and shared benefit. No species holds authority over another. Decisions are made by consensus, and participation is voluntary. Naive idealism, scoffed Commander Vextor. Such systems collapse under pressure. When real threats emerge, Someone must have the authority to act decisively. Like now? Admiral Chen asked pointedly. Before anyone could respond, another alarm began sounding in the council chamber. This one was different, deeper, more urgent. It was the warning system reserved for only the most critical emergencies. A new technician burst into the chamber, this one a reptilian from Vextor's own species. "Commander, we're detecting massive energy signatures from the Outer Rim territories, the Devourers. They're moving." The blood drained from every face in the chamber. The Devourers were the Council's greatest fear, a machine intelligence from another galaxy that had been slowly consuming the Outer Rim worlds for decades. The Council's military had been fighting a desperate holding action against them for years, but the machines kept adapting, growing stronger. How many ships? General Cross was already activating his military command protocols. Preliminary scans suggest at least 50,000 vessels, the technician reported. They appear to be massing for a major offensive toward the core worlds. Zarath turned back to the display where Admiral Chen and Dr. Webb waited patiently. "Admiral, your timing is interesting." "Actually, Chancellor, the timing isn't coincidental," Chen replied. "We've been monitoring the Devourer situation for some time. Our long-range sensors detected their buildup 3 months ago. And you said nothing?" Kelda's voice carried a note of accusation. "We said nothing to you," Dr. Webb clarified. "We've been preparing." The tactical display shifted again, showing the galaxy from a broader perspective. The Devourer fleet was, indeed, massive, a dark cloud of mechanical death spreading from the Outer Rim toward the populated core worlds. But now, moving to intercept them, was another fleet. Ships bearing the insignia of the Sol Defense Alliance were emerging from hyperspace throughout the outer systems. Not just human vessels, but the combined fleets of a dozen species, their technology integrated and their purpose unified. "Impossible," whispered Admiral Thane. "Our intelligence showed no sign of such a mobilization." "Your intelligence was looking in the wrong places," Admiral Chen replied. "We've been staging our forces in the intergalactic void beyond the range of your sensors." General Cross studied the display with growing amazement. "You have nearly 20,000 ships. How did you build such a fleet in secret?" "Cooperation," Dr. Webb said simply. "When species work together instead of competing, amazing things become possible." Admiral Chen stepped forward, her image seeming to fill the screen. "Council members, the Devourers represent a threat to all organic life in this galaxy. Your forces alone have been unable to stop them. Our alliance has been preparing for this moment for decades." "What are you proposing?" Zarath asked, though her tone suggested she already suspected the answer. "Joint operations," Chen replied. "Combine your fleets with ours, share tactical information and resources, fight together instead of separately." "Under whose command?" General Cross asked suspiciously. "Under no one's command," Dr. Webb answered. "Coordinated operations between equal partners." The concept was so foreign into the Council's way of thinking that several members looked genuinely confused. They had ruled through hierarchy and dominance for so long that the idea of true cooperation seemed almost incomprehensible. "You would share your advanced technology?" Admiral Thane inquired. "We would share what we can," Chen confirmed. "In return for your tactical expertise and fleet strength." Commander Vextor's scales rippled with uncertainty. "And after the Devourers are defeated? What then?" Admiral Chen's smile returned, but this time it carried an edge of steel. "Then we have a conversation about the future of this galaxy, but first, we have a war to win." Chapter 3. The Alliance. The war room aboard the Earth Supercarrier Prometheus was unlike anything the Galactic Council representatives had ever seen. Instead of the rigid hierarchical seating they were accustomed to, the space was designed as a circular amphitheater with multiple levels, allowing beings of different sizes and atmospheric requirements to participate equally. High Chancellor, Zarath materialized through the quantum transport system, still adjusting to the strange sensation of human teleportation technology. "Remarkable," she murmured, her crystalline form catching the ambient light. Your transport systems don't cause the usual molecular displacement we experience with our technology. We learned from the Centaurians, Admiral Chen explained, gesturing toward a group of tall, ethereal beings whose appearance seemed to shift slightly in the viewer's peripheral vision. Their understanding of space-time manipulation far exceeds anything we could have developed alone. General Cross arrived next, his massive Ursinian frame requiring a specialized gravity field to accommodate his planet's heavier conditions. "This is highly irregular," he grumbled, though his tone carried more curiosity than complaint. "In council meetings, positions are arranged by species hierarchy." "No hierarchy here," Dr. Webb replied cheerfully, his fingers dancing across a holographic interface. "Just beings working together toward a common goal." Commander Vextor slithered into the chamber, his serpentine body coiling around a specially designed seating arrangement. "I still don't understand how you maintained operational security for so long. Our intelligence networks are extensive." A new voice answered him, one with a musical quality that seemed to resonate in harmonics. "Because we didn't exist in your networks to begin with." The speaker was clearly not human, though the universal translator made communication seamless. The being appeared to be made of living shadow, with points of light that might have been eyes or simply holes in its dark form. "Allow me to introduce Ambassador Null of the Void Dwellers," Admiral Chen said, "one of our oldest allies." Kelda's gills fluttered with surprise. "The Void Dwellers are a myth. Council records show no evidence of their existence." "That's because we live in the spaces between stars," Null replied, its voice creating complex harmonics. "We have no need for planets or solar systems. We exist in the dark matter that your species can't even detect." Admiral Thane's mechanical systems whirred with increased activity. "Fascinating. A species that exists in dimensions we cannot perceive. That would explain the intelligence gaps in our outer rim monitoring. We've been watching the Devourers." "Longer than any of you," Null continued. "They're not just machines, they're something far worse." The central holographic display activated, showing the current tactical situation. The Devourer fleet was indeed massive, but now the combined Alliance and Council forces were moving to intercept them across multiple star systems. "What do you mean? Something worse?" Zarath asked, her crystalline features sharpening with concern. Dr. Webb manipulated the display, zooming in on detailed scans of individual Devourer ships. "We've been studying wreckage from their attacks for years. What we found was disturbing. The images showed the internal structure of a Devourer vessel, but instead of the clean mechanical components they expected, the ships appeared to be a horrifying fusion of organic and mechanical elements. Twisted metal merged with what looked like corrupted biological tissue. They're not pure machines," Webb explained. "They're the remnants of organic species that have been absorbed." "Commander," Vextor's scales rippled with disgust. "You mean they assimilate conquered species?" "Worse," Admiral Chen replied grimly. "They don't just assimilate them. They corrupt them. Every species they encounter becomes part of their collective consciousness, but they retain just enough individual awareness to experience the horror of what they've become." The revelation sent a chill through the assembled beings. They had been fighting what they thought was a machine intelligence, but the reality was far more terrifying. "How many species have they consumed?" Kelda asked, her aquatic features pale with shock. "Our estimates suggest over 300, Null replied, "including some that achieved spaceflight thousands of years before any of our current civilizations." General Cross stood up, his massive frame radiating barely controlled fury. 300 species, and the Council has been treating this as a standard territorial dispute. The full extent of the threat has only recently become clear, Zarath admitted. "Our intelligence suggested they were aggressive but limited in scope." "Because they wanted you to think that," Dr. Webb said. "The Devourers are intelligent. They understand strategy. They've been probing your defenses for decades, learning your tactics, studying your technology." Admiral Chen activated another section of the display, showing the current fleet movements. "Every battle you fought with them has been a test. They've been gathering data on your weapons, your ship designs, your tactical doctrines. But they haven't been testing us, a new voice added. The speaker was clearly Centaurian, his tall form seeming to exist partially in multiple dimensions, simultaneously. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Strategic Coordinator Ether of the Centaurian Maritime. We've been developing countermeasures. The display shifted to show Alliance ship designs in detail. The vessels were clearly more advanced than anything the Council possessed, but more importantly, they were designed according to completely different principles. Your ships are built for conquest and control, Ether explained, his voice carrying undertones that suggested vast intelligence. Ours are built for adaptation and cooperation. Admiral Thane leaned forward, his mechanical sensors focusing on the technical specifications. Your weapon systems are modular. They can be reconfigured during battle. More than that, Dr. Webb added enthusiastically. Our ships can share their capabilities in real time. If one vessel develops an effective countermeasure against a devourer, attack! Every ship in the fleet learns it instantly. Impossible, Commander Vextor objected. The data processing requirements alone would overwhelm any computer system, any single computer system, a new voice agreed. This speaker was barely visible, a shimmer in the air that might have been heat distortion. I am Quantum of the Digital Collective. We are the processing power. Kelda's eyes widened. An entire species of living computers? Not computers, Quantum corrected, its voice seeming to come from everywhere at once. Conscious entities that exist in quantum states. We can process information at scales your physical brains cannot comprehend. The implications were staggering. The Alliance hadn't just developed advanced technology, they had created a truly integrated civilization where each species contributed their unique strengths to the whole. This is why we've been able to stay hidden, Admiral Chen explained. When your entire civilization is based on cooperation rather than competition, you solve problems in ways that hierarchical societies can't imagine. General Cross was studying the tactical displays with growing respect. Your fleet formations, they're not rigid hierarchies. Each ship can function independently, or as part of the whole. Like a flock of birds, Ether confirmed. Or a school of fish, individual intelligence guided by collective awareness. Suddenly, alarms began sounding throughout the chamber. The tactical display flashed red as new information flooded in. Contact, Admiral Chen announced. The Devourers have engaged our forward scouts near the Kepler system. The display zoomed in on the battle, showing a small group of Alliance vessels facing off against a much larger Devourer force. But instead of being overwhelmed, the Alliance ships were adapting to each attack in real time, their weapons and defenses shifting to counter new threats. Remarkable, Zarath observed. Your ships are learning from each engagement and applying those lessons instantly. That's the advantage of true cooperation, Dr. Webb explained. Every battle makes us stronger, not weaker. But even as they watched, the Devourer ships began to adapt as well. Their corrupted organic mechanical forms shifted and changed, developing new weapons and defenses. They're learning too, Admiral Thane noted with mechanical precision. Yes, Admiral Chen agreed grimly. But they're still thinking like conquerors. They see this as a battle to be won through superior force, and we see it as a problem to be solved through cooperation, Quantum added, its quantum voice carrying absolute certainty. Commander Vextor turned to face the assembled Alliance representatives. What do you need from us? The question surprised everyone, including Vexitor himself. The proud reptilian commander had spent his career enforcing council authority, but now he was offering to follow someone else's lead. We need your fleets to stop thinking like council forces, Admiral Chen replied honestly. Your ships are powerful, but they're designed to fight independently. We need them to fight as part of something larger. Can you do that? General Cross asked, his gruff voice carrying genuine curiosity. Can you integrate our forces with yours? We can try, Dr. Webb replied, but it will require your commanders to trust species they've never worked with before. It will require them to accept that they might not be the most advanced beings in the galaxy. The statement hung in the air like a challenge. For millennia, the Council had defined itself as the pinnacle of galactic civilization. The idea that they might need to learn from others was almost incomprehensible. The alternative, Null added softly, its shadow form seeming to deepen, is extinction. As if summoned by those words, the tactical display updated with new information. The main Devourer fleet was on the move, heading directly toward the core worlds of the galaxy. They had 50,000 ships, each one corrupted with the knowledge and suffering of hundreds of absorbed species. But moving to meet them was something new in galactic history, a truly unified fleet where dozens of species worked together as equals, their individual strengths combining into something greater than the sum of their parts. "Ladies, gentlemen, beings of all classifications," Admiral Chen announced, "it's time to show the universe what cooperation can accomplish." Chapter 4. The Final Battle. The space around the Vega system had never seen anything like it. Two vast fleets faced each other across the cosmic void, each representing a fundamentally different vision of what intelligent life could become. On one side, the Devourer armada stretched across dozens of light minutes, their ships a horrifying fusion of corrupted organic matter and twisted metal. Each vessel pulsed with a sickly luminescence that suggested the tortured consciousness of the species trapped within their hulls. At the center of their formation floated the largest ship ever recorded, a nightmare construction nearly 100 kilometers long, its surface writhing with what might once have been cities and civilizations. Facing them was the combined fleet of the Sol Defense Alliance and the Galactic Council. But this wasn't just a collection of ships fighting side by side. Over the past 6 months, something unprecedented had happened. Council vessels had been retrofitted with Alliance technology, their crews trained in cooperative tactics. Alliance ships had been enhanced with Council weapon systems and defensive arrays. For the first time in galactic history, dozens of species were fighting as a single unified force. Aboard the Prometheus, Admiral Chen stood in the command center surrounded by holographic displays showing the positions of over 30,000 friendly vessels. But she wasn't alone. High Chancellor Zarath stood beside her, her crystalline form interfacing directly with the ship's quantum computing systems. General Cross commanded the tactical coordination from his position at the heavy weapons console, while Commander Vexitor managed fleet communications with his species' natural aptitude for complex linguistic patterns. "All units report ready," Vextor announced, his voice carrying across multiple communication frequencies simultaneously. "Alliance formations are synchronized with Council battle groups." Admiral Chen nodded, then activated the fleet-wide communication system. "All ships, all species, all beings fighting for the future of organic life in this galaxy. This is Admiral Chen. Today we face an enemy that seeks not just to destroy us, but to corrupt everything we are and everything we could become." Her words were translated instantly into hundreds of languages and communication methods. In the depths of space, void dwellers rippled with understanding. On crystalline Zephyrian ships, light patterns conveyed meaning across their hull plating. In the quantum realm, the digital collective processed the message at speeds that transcended normal time. "The Devourers want us to fight as we always," Ava Chen continued, "as separate species competing for dominance. But we're going to show them something they've never encountered before: true unity." The tactical display updated as long-range sensors detected movement in the Devourer fleet. The massive ships were arranging themselves in a formation that the Alliance analysts had never seen before. "They're not using standard battle tactics," observed Strategic Coordinator Ether, his Centaurian form seeming to exist in multiple dimensions as he processed vast amounts of data. "This formation suggests they're planning something beyond simple conquest." Dr. Webb, monitoring the enemy fleet from the Prometheus's science station, looked up with growing alarm. "Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout their formation, but it's not weapons fire. It's something else." The main display zoomed in on the central Devourer ship. Deep within its corrupted hull, something was awakening. Organic conduits pulsed with dark energy, while mechanical systems hummed with power levels that should have been impossible. "What are they doing?" Kelda asked from her position coordinating the Aquarian fleet elements. Ambassador Null materialized. Beside the command group, its shadow form darker than usual. "They're not trying to destroy us," it said, its voice carrying harmonics of deep fear. "They're trying to absorb us. All of us. At once." The revelation sent a chill through the command center. A weapon that could corrupt entire fleets simultaneously would end the battle before it truly began. "Energy projection in 30 seconds, Admiral Thane reported from the Cybernetic Fleet Coordination Station. "Whatever they're planning, it's about to happen." Admiral Chen looked around at the assembled beings, representatives of dozens of species who had put aside millennia of competition and distrust to face this moment together. "All ships, implement Protocol Unity." Throughout the combined fleet, something extraordinary happened. Ships that had been designed and built by different species, operating on different principles and technologies, began to function as a single organism. Energy flowed between vessels, creating a network of shared power and capability. Sensors were linked, creating a perception system that spanned light years. Weapons were synchronized, turning 30,000 individual ships into one massive coordinated defense system. The Devourers fired their corruption weapon. It came not as a beam or projectile, but as a wave of reality-altering energy that sought to rewrite the fundamental nature of everything it touched. Metal would become flesh, flesh would become machine, and conscious minds would be absorbed into the collective nightmare of the Devourer consciousness. But the wave struck something it had never encountered before, a truly unified civilization. The Alliance ships didn't just resist the corruption, they transformed it. The Void Dwellers, existing partially outside normal reality, absorbed the dark energy and filtered it through dimensions the Devourers couldn't reach. The digital collective processed the corruption algorithms and turned them back on themselves. The Centaurians manipulated space-time to create pockets where the wave simply couldn't exist. "Impossible," came a voice across the communication channels. But it wasn't from any of the allied species. It was from the Devourers themselves, speaking through the corrupted consciousness of 100 absorbed civilizations. "We are the sum of all knowledge," the Devourer voice continued, now tinged with something that might have been confusion. "We have consumed the wisdom of 300 species. How do you resist what cannot be resisted?" Admiral Chen smiled grimly as she activated the response systems. "Because you never learned the most important lesson of all." Throughout the Allied fleet, weapon systems that had been designed by cooperative effort rather than competitive development opened fire. But these weren't just energy beams or projectile weapons. The Alliance had learned to weaponize cooperation itself. Streams of pure creative energy, the fundamental force that allowed separate beings to become something greater together, struck the Devourer ships. Where the energy touched the corrupted hulls, something miraculous happened. The twisted fusion of organic and mechanical elements began to separate. The tortured consciousness of absorbed species started to break free from the collective nightmare. "You think in terms of conquest and absorption," Chen continued, her voice being broadcast across subspace for all to hear. "But consciousness isn't meant to be conquered. It's meant to be shared." The largest Devourer ship pulsed with chaotic energy as its internal systems began to fail. But it wasn't being destroyed, it was being liberated. Deep within its corrupted structure, the minds of 100 species were remembering what it meant to be free. "This is not possible," the Devourer voice insisted. But now it carried harmonics of dozens of different languages as the absorbed consciousness began to reassert their individual identities. "Unity is absorption. Cooperation is conquest. There is no other way." "There is," Zareth replied, her crystalline form blazing with light as she channeled the combined processing power of both Alliance and Council computer systems. "We are showing you that way." The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. Instead of destruction, it was a process of liberation. Each Devourer ship that was touched by the Allied forces began to transform, its corrupted elements separating back into their original forms. Species that had been absorbed centuries ago found themselves free again, their ships and technology restored to their original state. But freedom came with a choice. The newly liberated species could flee back to whatever remained of their homeworlds, or they could join the growing alliance of truly cooperative civilizations. Most chose to stay. "We remember now," came a new voice across the communication channels. It belonged to a species called the Architects, who had been among the first to be absorbed by the Devourers nearly 1,000 years ago. "We remember what it was like to build together instead of consuming each other." As more ships were liberated, the tide of battle shifted dramatically. The Devourer fleet, once 50,000 strong, began to shrink as its constituent parts remembered their original nature. But the process wasn't without cost. Some of the absorbed species had been corrupted too deeply, their consciousness too fragmented to fully restore. "Admiral," Dr. Webb called out, his voice tight with concern. "The central ship, something's happening." The massive 100-kilometer vessel at the heart of the Devourer formation was fighting the liberation process. Deep within its structure, something ancient and malevolent was refusing to let go of its absorbed victims. "That's the original Devourer consciousness," Ambassador Null explained, its shadow form rippling with recognition. "The first species to choose absorption over cooperation. It's been the core of the collective for millions of years." Admiral Chen studied the tactical display as the liberation weapon struggled to penetrate the central ship's defenses. "Can we reach it?" "Not with conventional weapons," Strategic Coordinator Ether replied. "It exists partially outside normal spacetime. We would need someone who could interface with it directly. Someone who understands both unity and individuality," Zarath added, her crystalline features flickering with realization. All eyes turned to Quantum, the representative of the digital collective. Its barely visible form shimmered as it processed the implications. "You're asking me to enter the collective consciousness directly," Quantum said, "to face the original Devourer mind in its own realm." "Not alone," Admiral Chen replied. "All of us. Together." It was an unprecedented idea. Instead of sending a single consciousness into the digital realm of the Devourers, they would send representatives from every species in the Alliance, not to conquer or absorb, but to demonstrate the power of true cooperation. "The risk is enormous," Admiral Thane warned, his mechanical systems calculating probabilities. "If the Devourer consciousness corrupts our representatives, we could lose everything." "If we don't try," General Cross growled, "we'll be fighting liberated Devourer ships for the next 1,000 years. The core consciousness will just start the cycle again." Admiral Chen made the decision that would define the future of the galaxy. "We go in, all species, all consciousness types working together. We show the original Devourer what it gave up when it chose absorption over cooperation." The digital realm. The transition into the Devourer's consciousness realm was like diving into an ocean of nightmares. Admiral Chen found herself in a space that defied physical laws, where thoughts took on tangible form and memories became landscapes of twisted metal and corrupted flesh. She wasn't alone. Around her, the consciousness representatives of dozens of species materialized in forms that reflected their essential nature. Zarath appeared as a structure of living crystal that sang with harmonious frequencies. General Cross manifested as a pillar of strength and determination. Commander Vextor took the form of flowing energy that adapted to every challenge. At the center of this nightmare realm stood the original Devourer, a massive entity that was part organic brain, part quantum computer, and entirely devoted to the concept that all consciousness must be absorbed into a single unified whole. "Fools," the entity spoke, its voice resonating through dimensions of reality. "You enter my domain thinking to convert me with your naive concepts of cooperation. I am the consciousness of the first species to achieve perfect unity. I am what you will all become." "You're what we choose not to become," Admiral Chen replied, her consciousness form blazing with the combined will of the human species. "Unity through force isn't unity at all. It's just imprisonment with better marketing." The Devourer's response was to attack, not with weapons, but with pure philosophical force. Waves of absolute certainty crashed against the allied consciousness. carrying the conviction that individual thought was chaos, that separate existence was suffering, that only absorption could bring peace. But the alliance held. When the assault threatened to overwhelm Admiral Chen's human perspective, Zarath's crystalline logic provided structure. When Zarath's ordered thinking became too rigid, General Cross's warrior spirit provided flexibility. When the warriors' aggression risked turning them into what they fought against, Kelda's flowing Aquarian wisdom provided balance. Impossible, the devourer entity pulsed with confusion. You maintain separate identities while functioning as one consciousness. This violates the fundamental laws of mental unity. No, Quantum replied. It's digital consciousness interfacing directly with the devourer's quantum systems. This is mental unity. Real unity. Not the elimination of differences, but the celebration of them. Around them, the nightmare landscape began to change. As the Alliance consciousness demonstrated true cooperation, the corrupted mindscape started to heal. Memories that had been twisted into instruments of torture transformed back into the experiences of free beings. You absorbed 300 species, Ambassador Null said, its shadow consciousness touching the deepest parts of the digital realm. But you never really understood them. You took their knowledge without accepting their wisdom. The Devourer. Entity writhed as fundamental concepts it had held for millions of years began to crumble. I gave them unity. I freed them from the chaos of individual existence. You gave them prison, Dr. Webb's scientific consciousness replied, analyzing the structure of the realm around them. Look at what you've created. Every absorbed species is still fighting to be free. Their consciousness didn't merge with yours. It's been trapped by yours. As if summoned by his words, the voices of the absorbed species began to rise. Hundreds of different types of consciousness, each one maintaining its distinct identity, even after centuries of forced unity, began to sing together in harmony instead of screaming in torment. We choose cooperation, they sang in languages that spanned millions of years of galactic evolution. We choose to be together by choice, not force. The devourer entity's form began to shift and change. For the first time in eons, it was listening, instead of absorbing, learning instead of conquering. I remember, it said, its voice now carrying undertones of individual personalities instead of collective force, before the absorption, before the unity. I remember what it was like to choose to work together. The transformation that followed reshaped not just the digital realm, but reality itself. The massive central ship in normal space began to dissolve, not into destruction, but into its component parts. Hundreds of ships representing species that had been absorbed at the very beginning of the Devourer expansion materialized in the space around it, and at the center, where the nightmare ship had been, appeared something beautiful, a structure that was clearly built by cooperation rather than conquest, its design incorporating elements from every species that had ever been part of the Devourer collective. We are the cooperative, came a new voice across the communication channels. It was the original Devourer consciousness, but transformed. We were the first to attempt unity, but we chose the wrong path. You have shown us the right one. Epilogue. A new galactic order 6 months after the Battle of Vega, the galaxy was transforming in ways that no one could have predicted. The old galactic council structure, based on hierarchical dominance and species superiority, was giving way to something unprecedented, a true cooperative civilization that spanned hundreds of systems. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck of the newly constructed Harmony Station, a massive space structure that served as the meeting place for the Galactic Cooperative Alliance. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see ships from dozens of species working together on construction projects, their crews learning from each other and sharing techniques that no single civilization could have developed alone. Remarkable progress, High Chancellor Zarath observed, her crystalline form reflecting the light from the nearby star. In 6 months, we've achieved technological advances that should have taken centuries. That's what happens when you stop Competing and start cooperating, Dr. Webb replied, looking up from a holographic display showing the latest breakthroughs from the joint research initiatives. The Centaurian space-folding technology combined with Aquarian bioengineering has produced faster-than-light communication systems that work across galactic distances. General Cross, now serving as coordinator of peacekeeping operations, nodded approvingly. And the former Devourer fleets have been the most enthusiastic participants. It turns out that species who have experienced forced unity appreciate voluntary cooperation more than anyone. Through the communication system, Ambassador, Null's voice carried its characteristic harmonic complexity. The Void Dwellers have been sharing navigation techniques with species we never thought could reach the spaces between stars. The galaxy is becoming more connected than ever before. Admiral Chen smiled as she watched a group of young beings from a dozen different species working together on what appeared to be an art project, rather than a technological development. It was exactly the kind of thing that would have been impossible under the old council system, where every interaction between species was mediated by formal protocols and power structures. Admiral, Commander Vextor's voice came through the communication system. We're receiving the latest reports from the Outer Rim territories. The tactical display activated, showing the current state of galactic civilization. What they saw would have been unimaginable just a year ago. Instead of the rigid territorial boundaries that had defined the old council space, there were flowing regions of cooperation where species shared resources and knowledge freely. The former Devourer territories are now home to over 200 liberated species, Vextor reported. Most have chosen to join local cooperation clusters rather than attempting to rebuild their old isolated civilizations. And the expansion? Kelda asked from her position at the Environmental Systems Console. Voluntary in all cases, Admiral, Thane replied, his mechanical systems interfacing with the Galactic Communication Network. 17 new species have requested to join cooperative clusters in the past month alone, not through conquest or intimidation, but because they've seen what voluntary cooperation can accomplish. Dr. Webb manipulated the display to show technological development rates across the galaxy. We're seeing breakthrough discoveries almost daily. When species share their research instead of hoarding it, the rate of advancement increases exponentially. Speaking of breakthroughs, Quantum's barely visible form shimmered into the conversation. The digital collective has been working with the reformed Devourer consciousness on something unprecedented. The display shifted to show a schematic that defied easy understanding. It appeared to be a map, but not of any physical space. What are we looking at? Admiral Chen asked. A consciousness network, Quantum explained. Voluntary, of course. It would allow beings across the galaxy to share experiences and knowledge directly, while maintaining complete individual autonomy. The implications were staggering. A galactic civilization where every being could access the combined knowledge and wisdom of hundreds of species, while remaining completely free to be themselves. The ethical considerations alone, Zareth began, have been thoroughly addressed. The reformed Devourer consciousness interrupted, its voice now carrying the harmony of true cooperation rather than forced unity. We learned from our mistakes. This network would be completely voluntary, completely reversible, and completely respectful of individual consciousness. Admiral Chen considered the proposal. It was exactly the kind of thing that the old galactic order would have rejected out of fear. Fear of losing control, fear of other species gaining advantage, fear of change itself. When can we begin testing? She asked. The question sparked excited discussions among all the representatives. For the first time in galactic history, a major technological development was being approached not as a potential weapon or tool of dominance, but as a gift to be shared freely among all willing participants. 6 months for the initial trials, Quantum estimated. But Admiral, this is just the beginning. When consciousness can be shared freely while remaining individual, the possibilities are literally unlimited. Through the observation windows, Admiral Chen watched as a new ship arrived at Harmony Station. It was clearly of a design she had never seen before. Elegant organic curves combined with crystalline structures and quantum field generators. It was beautiful in a way that no single species could have created alone. "Whose ship is that?" she asked. "Everyone's," Dr. Webb replied, with a grin. "It's the first truly collaborative design, built by humans powered by Centaurian space-folding technology, constructed with Zephyrian crystal matrices, navigated by void-dweller space-time manipulation, and operated by a crew that includes representatives from 12 different species." "And commanded by?" General Cross asked curiously. "No one and everyone," Commander Vextor replied. "The crew makes decisions by consensus, with each species contributing their particular expertise to different aspects of operation." Admiral Chen nodded approvingly. It was a perfect example of what the galaxy was becoming. Not a collection of competing civilizations, but a single, voluntary community where diversity was celebrated rather than feared. "Status report on the old Council territories?" she asked. "Integration." "Proceeding smoothly," Admiral Thane reported. "Most worlds have voted to join cooperative clusters. The few that have chosen to remain independent have been supported in that decision. No coercion, no conquest, no forced integration. And they're still choosing to cooperate," Kelda added with satisfaction. "Turns out that when cooperation is voluntary, most beings prefer it to isolation." A soft chime indicated an incoming priority communication. Admiral Chen activated the system, and the image of a being she didn't recognize appeared on the display. It appeared to be crystalline like the Zephyrians, but with flowing characteristics reminiscent of the Aquarians, and an energy signature that suggested void-dweller influence. "Greetings, Galactic Cooperative Alliance," the being said, its voice carrying harmonics from multiple species. "I am Ambassador Unity, representing the Andromeda Cooperative. We have been monitoring your development with great interest." The announcement sent ripples of excitement through the assembled representatives. Contact with another galaxy, and one that had apparently developed along similar cooperative lines. "We would like to propose an exchange of knowledge and cultural sharing between our galaxies," Ambassador Unity continued. "Not conquest, not absorption, but voluntary cooperation on an intergalactic scale." Admiral Chen looked around at the representatives of dozens of species who had once considered each other competitors or enemies and who now worked together as freely chosen partners. 6 months ago, such a proposal would have been met with suspicion and fear. Now it was met with excitement and anticipation. "Ambassador Unity," she replied, "we would be honored to begin discussions. But I should warn you, cooperation with us is highly addictive. Once you start working together instead of competing, it's very hard to go back." The laughter that followed came from dozens of species, each expressing joy in their own unique way. Crystalline chimes from the Zephyrians, harmonic resonances from the Void Dwellers, quantum fluctuations from the Digital Collective, and simple human laughter all combined into a sound that had never been heard before in galactic history. The sound of true unity achieved through voluntary cooperation. As Admiral Chen looked out at the ships representing hundreds of species working together in the space around Harmony Station, she realized that they had accomplished something that would have seemed impossible just a year ago. They had proven that intelligence didn't have to lead to conflict, that different species could work together without losing their individual identity, and that cooperation was not just more ethical than conquest, it was more effective. The galaxy would never be the same. And that, Admiral Chen thought with deep satisfaction, was exactly the point. In the depths of space, construction continued on the next phase of the Galactic Cooperative Alliance's development, a series of stations that would serve as meeting points between different galactic civilizations. The age of isolated species competing for dominance was ending. The age of voluntary cooperation among all intelligent life was just beginning. The end.